Boys, it finally happened. After a long summer break, we've had a full week of Premier League football. We need to get into this. This is Red Card Radio. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're listening from. Thanks for tuning in. Red Card Radio is a weekly look at the Premier League from three friends who support different clubs. My name is James. I support Arsenal. With me tonight, that's Brad. He supports Chelsea up top, and down below, that is Sean. He supports Tottenham Hotspurs. Gentlemen, hello. Good day. How are you guys?
Okay.
Okay.
That's 10 games
okay
on the schedule. We watched all of them. Feels good.
Yes. Feels good. I was home this weekend and got to watch almost all of the games.
Yeah, we're one weekend in and I've already annoyed my wife with how much football I watched. So it was a good weekend.
Same here.
All right. We're back on our regularly scheduled program here at Red Card Radio. So this week, be on the lookout for 2 episodes. This one being the first. This is the review, essentially, of what has already transpired. And then later in the week, we will have a preview of what will transpire. So just be on the lookout for that. But if you are new here, thanks for clicking on the video. Thanks for clicking on the podcast. If you could hit us with a follow, like, review, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Ring the sub notification bell as well if you're there. Drop a comment on this video if you're on YouTube, and share it with a friend. All those things really do help us. And you definitely want to join our Discord. We are doing some picks every week. We're picking the winners and the losers, and I guess the people who decide on a fair, friendly draw. And we are doing all that through our Discord this year, but we will have results for week 1. We'll announce those here, maybe middle of the podcast. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. But I think we want to start just generally high level. It seemed like, and maybe, I don't know if you guys want to correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seemed like all the teams that we expected to win, with the exception of Spurs, all of the teams that we expected to win won, right? It seemed like a pretty chalk weekend.
Yeah, definitely. This is probably one of the most chalk weekends we've seen here. And like you alluded to,
and even my comment right after the game, which you corrected, was maybe at the end of the season I'll look back at a draw at the King Power and say, that wasn't a bad result. But I think that's going to be wrong, and I think you felt the same way.
Yeah, we'll dig more into the result there at the King Power between Leicester and Spurs, which ended in a 1-1 draw. We'll dig into that, I think, in just a moment. But I don't think that you'll look back on that with any reverence at the end of the season.
No.
What I think was really interesting about that is the fact that this is coming off of a summer with major international football. So there was the Euros, of course, there was the Copa America, and then there was lots of just like international football in general. I think that there was stuff going on in Asia and Africa. So like there was a lot of international football going around, and the teams, especially like the big teams in England, had a lot of players that played in finals. I mean, I know Manchester City, Rodri didn't play this weekend because he didn't have any training sessions.
Apparently, he also picked up a small injury too in the final.
Oh, did he?
Apparently, is what was said. Yes, that inhibited his training or whatever, that he wasn't able to go.
Yeah, but if you look at like some of these teams have had their players back for a week and a half, 2 weeks tops, or something like that, who played deep into these competitions, and so the fact that none of the teams that didn't have major international players away couldn't get a result in the weekend. United won, Liverpool won, Arsenal won, Brighton won, Newcastle won, Villa won, City won. And so these are all the teams I list, like that was probably like 8 of the top 8 last year, essentially, with the exclusion of Chelsea and Spurs. But like, it's impressive to me.
Yeah. Especially first week of the season, like you would think, like you said, you would think everybody would be ready for this game. They'd have their game plans down. I mean, the score lines are, when you look at the scores, like, yeah, that makes sense. I think Ipswich played really well against Liverpool in the first half. I I think Fulham played really well against United, and this felt like one of those United wins that shouldn't have happened, but does for whatever reason.
Yeah, Fulham looked good in that game. I will definitely agree to that there.
So as much as if you look at the score lines, it's like, oh yeah, that's chalk. That makes sense. But I think if we when you watch games or dive into the games, they were a lot closer than what the scores might say. The exception being Newcastle Southampton, because Newcastle went down, had 10 men, and they should still clean up that win. But that was a tough 1-0. But yeah, no, I agree with you. That's interesting that it's all chalk. That only Spurs and Chelsea were the ones that got upset.
Okay.
Interesting
Timeout. Brad just tried to say that Chelsea got upset. That's okay. That's fake
and Sean agreed. Sean agreed.
No, we're ignoring that to go back to. It's interesting to say that Newcastle also did not have that 1-0 advantage when they went down to 10 men.
Yes.
So that is most interesting to note that it was 0-0 when they were down to 10 men.
Yes.
So they scrapped hard enough to get that goal and then defend it.
But yeah, I mean, they still kind of played their ball. Like they still kind of played their game just with one less man. Like it made Southampton kind of interesting.
Let's be honest though. Like Southampton, like that, they've just come up. They were away from home, first game back. Like I wasn't expecting a whole lot from Southampton coming into this game. I think the reason why it finished 1-0 was because Newcastle was down to 10 men.
Yes.
I think if Newcastle was at full strength, they would have won more handily than that.
Yeah, Southampton was definitely giving it to Newcastle. Pope was on his head at times, keeping that game clean sheeted.
Yeah, I mean,
go for it, Brad.
Pope being back is going to be huge for Newcastle and not giving up goals like that. Him missing last year hurt Newcastle a lot.
They were probably like the most injured team last year. Like maybe them and maybe per capita. Like they had like the most injuries per capita just based on their smaller squad size. Okay, Brad's going to say that Chelsea were. But
I'm saying both were. I'll say both were.
Sean will point out that if you're injured every season, you no longer get to claim that you have an injury problem. So
we'll also point out that we had a lot of key players that were injured most of the season. We had the most match week, not the most match weeks missed, but we had probably top 3 match weeks missed by injury in the roster. So we were also bitten by that injury bug as well.
Is that
probably maybe it was Chelsea, Newcastle, it may have been Tottenham. Tottenham was up there. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Is the claim that when you say match weeks missed, is that just like a match week where you don't have your full strength team?
Players that were injured for the
or like
players that are
cumulatively
not available, cumulatively not available for the weekend.
Because I was going to say if the threshold was just like
that's why Chelsea won.
Yeah, if the threshold was just like match weeks where you don't have your full, like where somebody from your first team is injured, then most teams.
Newcastle had to win that.
Yeah, like we only had 2. We only had 2 weeks in the season where we had all of our available players. It was the first week and the last week because Jurriën Timber came back from injury. He went out injured on the first game and didn't come back until the last game of last season. So if you were just doing raw match weeks where you didn't have your full squad, then Arsenal would have been up there as well. But we obviously were not injured at all last year. We had very, very little injury issues. Can we have a quick shout out to the referees? We are we're 10 minutes into the podcast and we haven't had to complain about PGMOL yet.
No.
Okay. Why?
Although hold on. I do want to give PGMOL credit. They did start their X account that sends the explanation for the decisions in real time.
Yeah.
So yes, good job, more transparency. Your reasoning still sucks, but good transparency.
What issues did you have this week? I think there's the only one that I can really think of is in the Crystal Palace game, the free kick was disallowed. They should have.
Yeah, that
they
was
should have
terrible.
stood.
The Eze goal was terrible.
But that's a referee. That's just like a referee error. You gotta take your whistle out of your mouth.
Correct. Kovacic's handball.
Yeah, okay, that one was bad. True.
It's
what's
not a
his-
handball. We can argue about that if you want. That's
Yeah,
not
let's-
a handball.
No,
what
no,
is he
okay.
supposed to do? It's
go to
kicked
City.
at his
His
hand.
arm is
it's
up
in a
here.
natural. It's in a natural position. He's moving.
I agree with you, Sean. I agree with you that it's natural for what his body is trying to do at the time. But are you sure? Are you sure in your heart of hearts that won't be called a handball for the rest of the season? Because I'm not.
Oh no.
No, 100% no.
that's-
If it was any other ref but Anthony Taylor, it's a handball.
So that's my point. But VAR not intervening there then tells me that the precedent is being set that as long as you're lunging and if your hand goes up, if you're jumping and your hand moves a little bit and the ball strikes your hand, then that shouldn't be a penalty. And
It's going to be.
it's going to be. It's absolutely going to be.
100% going to be in about 2 weeks.
They did it last year with the second game of the season, Romero's handball against United, the second game of the season, where he slide tackles in and his hand goes up above his head as a sliding motion would do, and the ball hits his hand, and they say no penalty.
I think
and then later in the year they called it a penalty.
Honestly, I think that one's better. Like saying that the Romero one is not a handball seems to me
sliding
more reasonable. Because we've all played baseball before. We've all slid on a baseball field, or because none of us have played high enough level soccer to have been slide tackling. Slide tackling was illegal at the UVA Wise intramural soccer field.
That didn't stop it from happening.
Yeah, it did. But so we've all slid before. Your arms go up.
Yes.
But Kovacic's arm was
Running,
in an
this.
unnatural position,
all the way out here
in the penalty box, hand above his head. I thought that should have been a penalty.
But so we had the Kovacic, and I get most of the times that Enzo was fouled would be a 50-50 call, right? Like sometimes the ref is going to give that to you, sometimes they're not. But if there's 3 of them and you don't get a single one, that's kind of bad. Especially the one where he was dribbling and Diaz just took him out.
Is that the one where Diaz fell into him?
No.
Because
so there was the
Diaz
one where there's one where he's sitting at the top
Diaz
of the
had
box.
Diaz had 3 where I was like, oh, that's going to be a penalty. And then AT did nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So he's really letting them play here.
Where he was at the top of the box and he felt contact and went down. I was like, okay, that's called a penalty. It's called a penalty, but it's a 50-50 call. I get it if that's no, because I didn't really think it was a penalty either. The second one, he has the ball. It's a bad touch by him, but there's also enough contact that it could have been a penalty. The third one, when Diaz tackles him, he's going through people, and then Diaz tackles him down, should have been a penalty.
I can only speak to one of them, and I don't know which one of the 3 that I'm speaking to, but there was one where Diaz was playing defense and he got stepped on by someone and he fell down and kind of backwards, his back kind of fell into Enzo's legs and took him down, and it looked like a really bad tumble and like a bad clash. But for the fact that one of the Chelsea players stepped on Diaz's foot and then in falling over, he went into Enzo, I was like, yeah, that's not a penalty. And it wasn't called a penalty. So that's the only one I can speak to. And so Anthony Taylor did a good job.
Again, what I'm saying is 3 of them were all 50-50 calls. And on some days this year, they're going to be called penalties. And then on other days this year, they're not going to be called penalties.
An interesting thing we should take note of is on the days that they're not called penalty, is the person committing the foul Manchester City? I'm just wondering.
Probably. Yes.
I'm still thinking back to, I think it was City away at Aston Villa a couple years ago with the Rodri handball in the box that didn't get called.
Yep.
Just saying. That just came to my mind all of a sudden.
No, I don't. Man, we what that wasn't. No, what you're joking, right? We are joking about the refs helping Man City.
So, but
I
okay,
hope people are watching on YouTube and not. I hope you are listening to us. If you are listening to us on a podcast, great. But you should really check out the video so you can see the facial expressions happening.
quick, what's your final opinion on this City Chelsea game before we move over to Leicester, Brad?
I think we played really, really well. There were significant amounts of time that City was pinned back. Possession was even. Possession was almost even, essentially. Passes were essentially even. There was like a 45-ish difference in terms of like passes made. They just were clinical and we weren't. We had chances and we didn't take them. They had chances and they took them. Like Haaland's gonna score that.
So, are you more confident or less
Yeah.
confident going out of that game?
I am much more confident.
All right.
Maresca Ball is here to stay. I am behind this. Let's go.
All right. Well, Sean, are you still behind Ange Ball? Because it's not looking so hot right now.
We're 1 week in. So far, the only disappointing part is that you get Solanke to clean up our problem from last year. And our problem from last year was dominating almost every game and dropping points here and there. And that's a problem. If you dominate the game, you should close it out. And Solanke, the goal scorer, is there to close out the game. And he had a bunch of chances. And just, for whatever reason, maybe it was an unlucky day. It's not like he was invisible. It's not like when Richarlison was up top and you're just like, where is our striker? Like Solanke was pulling defenders and getting in space and taking shots on goal. He had a bunch of headers. He's a good crossing target, and made good on a bunch of those crosses, and just wasn't in the right spot at the right time. So, like, I can't say he had a bad game, right? Like, he was impactful.
Yeah,
but also it was the same exact thing as last year. We absolutely dominated Leicester, and we should have won that game. We should have had 3 at halftime, probably.
So,
and then it wouldn't have been a matter. But here we are.
I feel like I'm trying to word this the right way. I don't know if Solanke is necessarily the finisher of a 20 pass marathon. We keep the ball. He's in the box and scores. Right? Like most of his goals with Bournemouth were on the counter move. I'm not saying he can't. I'm like, that's why I'm trying to be careful on how I say this. I'm not saying that he can't do that. I'm saying that I don't know if he's ready or can do that right now. Match week 1. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And so my fear for you at Tottenham is that it's going to take him a bit to get used to having the ball and not having like one-on-ones with a defender to beat to score because it's a fast break. Does that make sense?
The only reason I'll push back on that is because of his ability to beat defenders and find the space already that he already possessed at Bournemouth, that we don't have to curate. He's very good at that. So the header space, he was getting a lot of service and finding the head to it pretty often. And that's going to be really successful because we have at least one fullback that can cross really well. Porro is, but which, by the way, James,
yeah.
This is going at you, James with Pedro Porro's goal. If you include all of last season and match week 1, Pedro Porro now has the most goals contribution as a defender in the Premier League over the last 39 games.
Interesting.
So he is a good crosser.
He's been holding on to that.
Yes.
Well,
No,
Okay.
because I brought it up when he said it that he's not a good crosser, and I was like, I bet you he has the most assists of any defender, and he did not have the most assists of any defender, but he also has the goals to support his goals contribution of being the most of any defender, including Trent, including Reece James, including every other defender that you guys want to throw in there. Pedro Porro has the most through 39 games.
Homie also sends the most crosses. So like his accuracy meter is probably a lot lower too. That's all homie does. He gets
Yeah.
the ball, he's
Hey,
blasting
I was judging him on the eye test when I made that claim. Is that I watched him for 45 minutes and the dude didn't hit a single cross, and that's why I asked you the question: can the guy cross the ball? That's the only reason I asked. The only thing I would say, and I think I mentioned this to you, Sean, about I agree with you. Like when I watched that game, I think my initial reaction in watching this game was that Spurs could score 12 here. Leicester couldn't get a kick in the first half. They couldn't get a kick, and Spurs dominated them, and there wasn't an end product. Like that's the part that like that the Manchester Cities, that the Arsenals of this league have figured out to a large degree, is like killing the game, right? And Arsenal didn't do a good job of killing the game this weekend, and neither did City. Neither one of us did a particularly good job of killing the game early. But like by and large, those are two things that those two teams do much better than any other team. Liverpool are quite close as well. And that's where Spurs struggle. So like you have one of two ways of doing that.
Liverpool just do it in the second half.
Yeah,
they do it in the second half.
You either score more goals than the other team or you play good defense, right? And I still have defensive questions about Spurs, just generally speaking. I think you have a great goalkeeper. I think you have a fairly high level center back pairing. I just have questions on like your defense along the wings and the midfield that's sitting in front of them. And so if Spurs want to be defensively resolute and score one goal and shut up shop, then great. But I think that's not how Ange wants to play. Ange wants to score 5 goals a game and be high press and score and be exciting. But if you're not clinical, then that's going to come back to bite you. And it did, because like if there's any single forward in the Premier League era that is built to give you a hard time if you don't kill off a game, it's Jamie Vardy. Like he
have it on my shirt.
He exists to be a nuisance, and he was a nuisance.
Who's pointing? You don't have.
I don't have one because I'm cheap. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm cheap.
Yeah.
I didn't add the badges.
Now patches are the most annoying things on kits.
They always peel off.
They just feel weird on the arm. They're not fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously my jersey has a crest on it. Like, what are you talking about?
Jamie Vardy with the troll of the century.
Yeah, it was good. You need to Google it if you're interested in what we're saying. But Sean, the same question to you that I asked Brad: how are you feeling, more confident or less confident walking out of this game, or the same?
I'm feeling more confident that Ange is going to switch up the lineup. I did not think that Bentancur or Sarr, one of the two, should have been there. I thought one of the kids should have been there. So it either should have been Archie Gray for Bentancur or it should have been Bergvall from the start for Sarr. And I feel like that's how we're going to figure out which one of the 18-year-olds is going to take us to the next level, because one of them will. They are both extremely talented and extremely clinical. And you're right. One of them is defensive and one of them is offensive. So which one is it going to be clinical on the offensive end with Bergvall, or is it going to be clinical on the defensive end with Archie? Which one is going to be the one that is the catalyst of our success? But you need to figure it out. You can't just bring them off the bench for 20 minutes, 15 minutes a game and figure out who's going to be good. This needs to be figured out faster.
But I have a question. Does Bergvall replace Bentancur or James Maddison?
Bentancur and that setup was the 6.
That's what I'm saying. Bentancur and Sarr. Okay, sorry. Or Sarr. Does he replace Sarr or Maddison? I think he's more of a Maddison replacement.
Essentially, no. You're talking about Bergvall. So
yeah.
No, Bergvall is not a 10. Bergvall is a box to box. He's like Odegaard.
I would classify Odegaard as more of a 10 than an 8, though. Like,
sure,
sure,
but
he can
he's not.
get
He's
back,
not.
but he's not going to defend.
He's not shy. He's not shy to get back and defend. Like he is a. Odegaard's a box to box that has 10 qualities.
Because 10s don't necessarily exist anymore.
Odegaard is a classical 10 that has been trained that they don't. You can't be a 10 in the modern game anymore, and you have to be box to box. And he's young enough and was impressionable enough to not be afraid to defend. But yeah, he is a classical 10. If to Sean's point or to Brad's point, whoever made the point.
I did because I don't. I mean, I guess my next question: are you happy with James Maddison?
Well, yeah, he gets back also. Like Maddison is the reason we scored. It was a beautiful pass to Porro. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
And he controls the game. He controls the game from the front. So
should we update the people on points totals?
I mean, if you guys have to, sure.
Let's do it.
So we had 6 respondents. We had 6 respondents last week. Of course, us 3, Joel, Jimmy, and Tamzid. And so we had 3 people finish at the top on 8 points. That was Sean, Jimmy, and myself. We all got 8 points right. Not all the same 8 picks, but we all got 8 picks right. Brad came in tied. Brad came in 4th with 6. Joel is 5th with 5, and Tamzid brings up the rear with 4 correct picks. Make sure you get your picks in to Discord for match week 2. We'll give you more information about that in our next episode, which is coming up later this week. But yeah, we will. We like doing this. It's a lot of fun. So, but that's all we got for the review of match week 1 for you guys. Drop a comment down below. Let us know what you thought. Hit us up on social medias. I am Brad is at KSBradG. Down below, Sean is at Whiteheart_Sean. I am at James Tiffany. Collectively, we can be reached at redcard_radio. That's all on X. And info.redcardradio@gmail.com is our email. Buffalo Wild Wings, we're still waiting to hear from you. But until then, I hope you guys have a good one. We will be back later this week, and we hope that your guys are back as well. Thank you.